Welcome to Across Africa, France 24's weekly roundup from across the continent. Coming up this week, more bodies are found in central Mozambique, not far from where a mass grave was discovered. The area has seen recent clashes between security forces and Renamo rebels. Also, a lack of cash may sink the hopes of Ghanaian athletes in the run-up to the Rio Olympics. Qualifiers around the corner and funding hurdles for the less popular sports may be tough to overcome. And we have a snapshot of Kinshasa's street photographers. Quick, easy, and eager to please. They're competing with more traditional studios. Well, first, more bodies were found in central Mozambique, not far from where a mass grave containing 120 bodies was reportedly discovered last month. The area has seen recent clashes between security forces and Renamo rebels. Ben Barnier tells us more.
Bodies decomposing on the ground. Police confirmed that the remains of 13 people have been found in the Makossa district in central Mozambique, a region where in recent months Renamo rebels have been clashing with government forces.
Did you see the mass grave?
Yes, I did. It's near my field. Since then, I haven't gone back to my field.
Late April, farmers in the region said they found another mass grave containing over 100 bodies. Locals say they were victims of government troops. Security forces prevented journalists from visiting the site where the remains were supposedly found. The presence of mass graves in the region is a thorny issue. Some here refuse to talk on camera. Others claim that reports have been exaggerated.
I have never heard of any mass grave here. And that's because people tell the truth. If local leaders say there is nothing, then it means there is nothing.
Since the beginning of the year, 83 summary executions have been reported to the Human Rights League of Mozambique, prompting fears of an all-out conflict more than 20 years after the end of the civil war.
Children and babies are amongst 150 people who have died this year alone, whilst being held at a military detention centre for Boko Haram suspects in northeastern Nigeria, so says Amnesty International. The Human Rights Monitor has slammed the treatment of civilian detainees at the Giwa barracks in Maiduguri and called on authorities to shut down the reportedly overcrowded and unsanitary site. Activists say that they've repeatedly warned about the dangers, but conditions have actually worsened. They're worried that authorities aren't doing all they can.
What's really shocking now is the evidence that children have died in Giwa barracks since February 2016. We have eyewitness testimonies and we have photographic evidence showing the corpses of children. And what's really disturbing about this is that there have been alarm bells, there have been warnings about this, there have been demands for Giwa Barracks Detention Centre to be closed. And the fact that we're seeing this new negative trend indicates a level of impunity and a level of disregard for the facts, for the evidence of human rights abuses.
Police in Burundi say that more than 450 people have died in a year of unrest over President Pierre Nkurunziza's bid for a third term. Hundreds of thousands of people have fled the country, many to Tanzania. Some there say that they're still not safe from intimidation.
It's been a year since Burundians began arriving here, but some refugees who have been attacked inside the camp and moved to protection areas say they are still not safe. This woman's family fled Burundi when government supporters threatened to kill her husband for refusing to join the ruling party. Months later, he was allegedly attacked inside the camp by the same men.
My husband was stabbed and went to the hospital in Zone 11, so we went to see him at the hospital. The police investigated, they questioned the neighbors, and the International Rescue Committee came, and it is them who moved us.
They were moved to a temporary shelter called the Departure Centre for people at risk. Another woman who fled government supporters in Burundi says it was other refugees who attacked her and her son on separate occasions. They were also moved to the Departure Centre.
When I was brought here to the Gender-Based Violence Center, it was because that man had come drunk. He took a machete to kill me. The neighbors disarmed him, and so I came here.
But it hasn't given her family the protection it needs. She says an assault on her daughter happened after they had been moved.
Me, I have not suffered so much, but it is my daughter who's been raped. When I washed my child, you see that when washing a child, it's the whole body. So at bath time, every time I touched her genitals, the child was screaming and crying. When I looked, I noticed that my child was damaged and I brought her to the hospital.
The UNHCR said the Tanzanian government is closely monitoring security in the camps and at border entry points, and that funding is required to support the establishment of additional safe shelters and emergency accommodation for families affected by violence.
Skype, WhatsApp and other internet call services have been blocked in Morocco. Providers say that it's too difficult to make money, whilst critics of the move say that it'll cut users off from the world.
Calls for communication restrictions to be lifted have been growing louder in Morocco, where free-to-use internet communication services have been blocked. Campaigners have taken to social networks to vent their fury at Moroccan service providers. Hashtags call for a free internet and label the phone operators dictators. One lawyer has now decided to take up the case against the National Telecoms Regulatory Agency. He wants to challenge their argument that free-to-use internet services operate without licenses and pose unfair competition to the communications industry.
There's a real lack of legislation on this subject in Morocco. There's no law that restricts internet usage by these applications.
Many families say they're disappointed by the restrictions. They've become accustomed to being able to talk and make video calls for free, and now complain they feel cut off from their friends and families at home and overseas.
We just don't understand the real or the hidden reasons behind this. We get the impression that our freedom of expression and our communication with the outside world has been limited.
Hisham's children live in France. He used to talk to them for more than an hour a day. That's now impossible under the new rules.
It makes me sad, especially about my daughter. I used to be able to see her play and make drawings to show me on the camera. Of course she suffers too, especially at her age. It's normal that she would want to see me.
The telecommunications sector has done little to address these complaints. Only one operator so far has announced they're developing an internet call service, a small step towards reconnecting the country to the rest of the world.
To Ghana now, where the country's top athletes are preparing for qualifiers ahead of this year's Olympics. But there are concerns that a lack of funding could sink the hopes of potential winners. Katerina Vitozzi has more.
Take your mark.
This is Ophelia Swain, Ghana's fastest female swimmer. She's 20 and a butterfly and freestyle specialist. Currently, she's training hard. She needs to shave just a second off her time in order to qualify for this year's Olympics.
It'll be a dream come true, because it's not everybody that gets to go to the Olympics. I want to be the first woman to go for the Olympics representing Ghana for swimming.
But Swain's Olympic dream may be over before it's even started. She's trying to raise money to get herself ready for the qualifier in Romania later this month. Ghana's Olympic Committee will pay for her flight, but that's about it. Getting money for even the basics is up to her and her coach.
So that we can get more equipment to train, so that I can train her very much. Yeah, in terms of water, fins, hand paddle, goggles, swim costumes.
Ghana's Swimming Federation admits there is a problem. State funding for the sport is minimal. To take an entire swim team to the All-African Games last year, the government gave them €1,000. In comparison, national football team players each get €4,000 a game.
The funding is not there for us. We are a sport that is growing, and we are growing against bigger sports like football, and therefore those other big known sports in the country get a bigger chunk of the money that comes from government.
The Federation says currently swimmers have to find around 90% of funding themselves, meaning those who dream of Rio might not get much further than a pool in Ghana.
Now, they're very easy to find in any African capital, or whether you want them to or not, they'll find you. In Kinshasa, street photographers are snapping up customers. They're cheap and eager to please with their on-the-spot shots.
A family picture shot and printed straight away outside the central station. Street photography is thriving in Kinshasa. Lekadi Meteo has been developing his business for 30 years.
My brother taught me how to do this. He was a photographer before I started. I launched my own little business because the economy was weak.
The framing's right, the color's bright, and photos are delivered in a flash. Many customers think it's a good deal, handy for family and official pictures.
With the official studios, you have to wait for several days to get your picture. Here, it's instantaneous, and it's cheaper. You can negotiate on the price here, and you can get your photograph on the spot.
While customers find it convenient, there's a negative side for the high street studios that street photographers compete with.
Not so long ago, it was impossible to print pictures on location. But now, street photographers don't even come to us to print their pictures.
With their heavy and expensive equipment, studios can't afford to lower their prices. Meanwhile, street photographers carry on haggling and shooting.
Well, that's it for Across Africa. But remember, you can always catch up with more news from across the continent with Eye on Africa with me, Monday to Friday. Thanks very much for joining us. And please do so again if you can. Take care.